when there's no football being played, i.e. the international break, you do tend to find that's when the stories and the rumours start coming out in the newspapers about, it's typically transfers and bits and pieces like that and player contracts. And we've already talked about in a previous video, regarding Thomas Souček's situation. We've talked about it a couple of times. Riley's did a video on it. And it's I find it really bizarre, actually, that one. It's still tickling me in terms of the amount of sort of top media outlets are still stating that Thomas Souček, his future's in doubt and he could go for free in the summer. I find it crazy, but yeah. So as we keep saying on this channel, just totally ignore that one because he signed a new 4-year contract. In fact, I believe he's got an option for a 5th. And he's very happy. He's apparently very happy at the football club. You can see that in his performances. He's been excellent this season. So Thomas Souček rumour, in terms of that, we're not going to talk about that one, but we've talked about it enough, but it's rubbish. But we do want to talk about other things as well. That's why we've decided to do the paper talk rather than do individual videos and talk about different stories. Thought we'd just sort of keep it a bit concise to a couple of sort of stories that are doing their rounds. First one is regarding Calvin Phillips, a player that we continually seem to be linked with. A player that's rejected us enough times now. It's another sort of Lingard scenario, where you feel like we seem to be going back and again for this player. Anyway, if you remember, I think the latest link with Phillips for West Ham was in the summer with Declan Rice. I believe that was that was could be possibly part of the deal if he had gone to Manchester City, etc., etc. But the players, even then, I think it came out that wasn't interested in a move to West Ham and wanted to fight for his place at Man City. I mean, that's clearly changed recently in terms of the Phillips camp. I think it's quite obvious that his feelings towards his career now has shifted in terms of wanting to stay at Man City and fight for his place, and now acknowledging the fact that actually I'm not getting enough game time. This isn't happening for me here, and he needs to be playing. I mean, Calvin Phillips is a very, very good player. There's a reason why Man City signed him. He's a very, very good player. A bit injury prone for my liking, but he's a very, very good player nonetheless. And he can't be just sitting on a bench. I mean, that's just not good enough. I mean, he's playing for England, but that won't last for long. Gareth Southgate's clearly got his favourites. We've kind of talked about this previously in terms of why Ward-Prowse wasn't in the squad. But that can only last so long for me. You might have his favourites, but at the end of the day, he's surely got to be playing more often if he wants to retain his longer-term England status. So I think that's causing a bit of a shift in terms of Phillips' thinking and certainly from his camp. And now he's open to a move. And now the noise from all the press, and this is not just coming from one sort of, Daily Star sort of little article. This is coming from a lot of big sources that Phillips' camp now are open for him to move to another club. And well, they've earmarked 2 football clubs, one being West Ham and the other being Newcastle. I would be shocked if he ever made it to West Ham now. And I'm not being arrogant here because I'm probably going to come across a little bit like that, but we really don't need him. We really do not need Calvin Phillips at all now. It would be a big amount of money to outlay to get him at the football club. Let's be honest. He's not going to be cheap. I mean, you're talking at least 45. I mean, they're going to want to recoup their money. I think they paid 45 for him. So let's just say we have to pay 45 to get him. That's a lot of money. I mean, Lucas Paqueta was 50. We go, do we really want to spend £45 million on a midfielder that really, I mean, who's he replacing? That's what I think of now. Like, if we sign Calvin Phillips tomorrow and then you've got Villa coming up, is he starting? I don't think he is. And I know that's not being arrogant, as I say, that's just being completely honest. I don't think West Ham need Calvin Phillips. So I actually do think he would end up going to Newcastle if they are interested, of course. Because not only is he a lot of money, and West Ham don't really need him, as I've said, but he's also really injury prone. We don't need an injury prone player coming to West Ham. It just wouldn't help. It wouldn't do us any favours at all. So, yeah, it's one of those, I think that he might well be open to the move, but I believe West Ham have moved on from it. The only way West Ham would, I think, go for Calvin Phillips is if, let's just say, I'm sure it's never going to happen and won't happen at all, but this is just hypothetical. If Edson Alvarez decided he wanted to leave in the summer, let's just say he went, right, I've had enough, don't want to be here anymore. Then I can imagine West Ham go, right, Phillips would be great to bring him in because he's a defensive midfielder. We don't need another defensive midfielder. A midfield anyway of Ward-Prowse and Alvarez is perfect. He's not replacing either of them two. He's not replacing Souček. He's a different type of player for a start. So people might say in this video, well, what you're trying to say, Souček's better than Calvin Phillips. But I would say, yes, he is better than him in terms of what he offers, in terms of, bringing goals and what, his position in the side. That's not Phillips's role. So it just wouldn't work. So I'm actually quite confident nothing will come of this. I think that it's more likely if he's going to go to one of the clubs, it won't be West Ham. It'll be more likely to be Newcastle. But yeah, we'll be linked to Phillips again. So, next week, I'm sure it'll be Lingard once again. Who knows? Then you've got Harry Maguire again linked with West Ham. Really weird, this Maguire one. Really strange because we know that West Ham had a bid accepted. That was fact. XWH employee confirmed that I think it was a £30 million bid was accepted by Manchester United for West Ham to buy Harry Maguire in the summer. West Ham wanted the deal. David Moyes desperately wanted the player. We know that. That was fact. The reason it didn't get over the line was because of the payoff that Maguire was seeking from Manchester United to subsidise the wage difference. So I think that Maguire's on something like 160, 170 grand a week at Manchester United. I think West Ham already offer him 100. So he was saying, well, that's 70 grand a week I'm going to lose. I want Manchester United to pay that difference now, and then I go. And then they obviously couldn't come to an agreement on that. So that's why the deal didn't happen. And if you remember, when it collapsed, when Harry Maguire was first talking about it, really dismissive of it, really basically, I know nothing happened, and it appeared that, again, much like the Calvin Phillips one, it was like almost like it wouldn't have happened, blah blah blah. And now we're in a situation with Maguire where he's now spoken in a press conference prior to an England game, one of our friendlies recently in Australia against Australia. He was very different, very, very different. He was complimentary of West Ham. He was very much the case of saying, well, West Ham are a massive, massive club. But he kind of worded it and said, well, no, there was no deal to be had. Nothing was agreed between the clubs. Well, we know that wasn't true. I think that Harry Maguire wanted to come to West Ham. I really do. I genuinely believe that he wanted to move. He was never going to come out and say that now, is he? Going to come out and say, well, I'm disappointed to stay at Manchester United. But he did also say in that press conference, playing, game time's really important to me. So that's also throwing a warning to Manchester United, isn't it? Do you know what? I would not be surprised if Harry Maguire eventually ends up being a West Ham player. I really wouldn't. Because we seem to be getting linked with him all the time. He's clearly trying to present himself a little bit to West Ham, and especially to maybe the fan base. He didn't have to drop that in. West Ham's a massive club. He didn't need to say that. And honestly, I really wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. Whether something happens in January, I don't know. The situation is, though, then who does he come in for? Who are we replacing him with? We're obviously seeing a lot of links with Kurt Zuma and even Naifa Gerd to Saudi Arabia. I'm not really reading into that too much, especially with in regards to Zuma. Zuma's West Ham captain. He's doing brilliantly, and he's trusted by David Moyes, and we know for a fact the club are trying to get a new deal arranged with him. So it just doesn't scream to me that West Ham are likely to looking at Zuma to replace him. The one is obviously, of course, a Gerd. Now, I really rate a Gerd, great player, and I don't want to see him go at all. But there is obviously these mistakes that tend to keep happening in his game, which is a little bit frustrating. But I still think he's a great player. So that the only thing is then who is Maguire coming in for? Mavropanos is coming in already impressed. Is he going to come in and be, Ogbonna's replacement? Well, I mean, much like I was just saying about Phillips, it's the question is, if Maguire comes to West Ham, does he start? I mean, the answer is probably no. Probably not now, no, because we've got our back to. It's really interesting to see how it will work and how this will pan out. But as I say, I would not be surprised if Maguire ends up being a West Ham player. I really wouldn't. And that rumour is still rolling. It really is. And it's starting to pick up again. So not necessarily, I don't think West Ham are going to fork out £30 million in January, unless we have to, unless there's an exit or something, then maybe. But next summer could well see something happen. But yeah, it's very interesting, that one. And the last one I want to talk about is Ben Johnson. So, I mean, this is one that has been rumbling for quite some time in terms of his long-term West Ham future. He's had contract offers given to him. He's rejected them. It appears in the latest round of rumours that he's rejected the latest offer, and West Ham are not going to offer him another one. It's really sad, really, how it's planning out for Johnson, but he's not been consistently good enough. That's the reality of Johnson. He's shown very good signs, let's be honest, in a West Ham shirt. He's had some good games. And I've watched him play before and think, yeah, do you know what? We've got a very good player around here. And then sometimes you watch him and think he just looks like a rabbit in the headlights for me. And it's a real shame because I really like him. And he's an academy boy. You don't want to see him go. But when it comes to Ben Johnson, you just feel like the writing's on the wall. You feel like he's on his way out of the club. He's not going to get a game. At the end of the day, he's not trusted. David Moyes doesn't trust him. And I don't feel like the fans do. I think that's the reality. I think he's got a mistake in him. And it's just sad to see. But maybe he does feel that his future lies elsewhere. Maybe, look, it might have done the world of good to move on. But the fact is, it appears now that he's turned down another contract. I don't know this for a fact. Again, this is all sort of doing its rounds at the moment as we speak in the papers. I don't know the facts of it. But it'd be interesting to know. I'd like to know your thoughts on all three of those, actually, with Phillips, Maguire and Johnson. West Ham, are we being naive with Johnson? Are we making a big mistake letting a player like him go? I don't know, but I like to have him around. I will be honest. I think he's good. He's a great backup to have. I really do. He's a good backup. But that's it. He's a backup. I don't see him being... I don't look at Ben Johnson and think that is a future West Ham right back who's going to solidify that position. He's had enough opportunities to do that and he just hasn't been able to do so. But as I say, he does put in the odd good performance. But yeah. But that's it. Rumour roundup. I mean, it's a few little stories doing their rounds at the moment. I say the Maguire one's the one I've got a real feeling something could happen eventually with that. But who knows? There are rumours that also that there are other clubs interested in him, which is understandable. But yeah, Calvin Phillips, I just think it's rubbish. Ben Johnson, though, that's the kind of emotional one, isn't it? Losing an academy player. But when it comes to Ben Johnson, I just feel like the writing's on the wall.